So far, so good. Then it said to give a quick anecdote about the groom, and then relate said anecdote to his relationship with the bride. The internet also warned against attempting to embarrass the groom, trying to be funny, and it warned to keep it under 5 minutes. So I started with the thank yous, and unfortunately I think that's where I will have to stop following the internet's instructions. The true difficulty in following Google's guideline is determining which one clever anecdote to discuss today. The one funny story that sums up Chris, our relationship, and his relationship with Jill. Some of you here today, who I've only recently had the pleasure of meeting, and some who I've yet to meet, are probably asking yourself who I even am. Well, the answer to that question is the exact same reason why finding that one clever anecdote is so difficult. You see, I've basically known Chris my whole life. I say basically because we met in grade 1. So technically, there were 6 years of my life without Chris. There we go. I can only assume they were fun, but to be honest, I don't really remember much of it. Ironically, these last 10 years or so with Chris, I know have been fun because I can't remember a lot of it. We like to party. Now, because we've known each other for so long, the list of activities that we've jointly participated in or competed against each other in is truly too long to name. Imagine every sport, every summer activity, vacations, family events, and you will only begin to scratch the surface. It's because of this history that when Chris asked me to be his best man, while an honor, it seemed more of an inevitable formality. As we all know, the role of best man is traditionally held by the groom's brother or his best friend. My relationship with Chris has truthfully always been closer to the former. Both of us were cursed with only having sisters growing up. Sorry, Heather. My sisters aren't here. But this actually separated us from the rest of the guys that we grew up with who all have brothers. Mark, Judd, Luke, Colin, Dolly, the list goes on. As me and Chris each had this mutual biological brother void, it was always an unspoken understanding, unspoken until now of course, that our friendship was slightly different. It's the kind of friendship few people have the pleasure of experiencing. Now looking back on my relatively young life, what originally seemed like a curse by only having sisters has been the greatest gift, as Chris is the kind of brother I always would have wanted. Chris has a cool, confident demeanor, which actually makes people want to be his friend. This is a trait that I've always been jealous of. That and his metabolism. But seriously, we can look around today and see his friends from Ontario, Nova Scotia, New Brunswick as an example of that. And it is true. Some of his best qualities include the abilities to problem solve, deal with stress, and Chris always stays grounded. I think this is likely based on a variety of reasons, but one is certainly his upbringing in New Brunswick and his appreciation of the simplicity of nature and the outdoors. Chris grew up going to the family cottage in the States. And as a quick aside, I actually came along to one of these cottage trips with the Cotton family. And before getting in the car, Alan, Chris's dad, informed me that I would be sitting in the middle seat for the duration of the 7-hour drive because Ginger, the family dog, preferred the windows. That's a true story. It's safe to say, as we've seen today, and if anybody saw from the pictures that were taken today, Chris obviously has inherited the love of golden retrievers from his father. Chris was also instrumental in helping me fix up a camp that we acquired in Sussex about 5 years ago. So, with that being said, I would like to take some credit for Chris's newfound handyman skills. So Jill, you're welcome. We also grew up camping on an island in the Kennebecasis River called Long Island. One of my personal favorite Chris stories stems from one of these camping trips on Long Island. After a comedy of errors, including the outboard motor popping off the back of the Boston Whaler that was used to take Chris over to the island, a few of us were stranded on the mainland, Judd, forcing us to kayak over. Because of this, we were slightly delayed in getting over to the island to meet Chris. In the 2 hours that elapsed from the time that Chris arrived onto the island to when we finally arrived, he was nearly unrecognizable. Not only had he removed his shirt, but also the chains and shackles of society's norms. He had built a giant fire. He had painted his face as if it was war paint from the ash of the fire that he had built. And he was also taking some very serious liberties with gasoline and fire. He had gone out, full out Lord of the Flies within about 90 minutes. Seeing the freedom and joy on his face, I now fully understand why he proposed to Jill in the way that he did. We all went away to a cottage in Ontario for the weekend, where he ever so cautiously let me in on his little secret. In traditional Chris fashion, he nonchalantly disclosed to me, "So, I'm gonna propose to Jill this weekend. Bought a ring. Pretty pumped." I was immediately happy that he was not only sharing his secret plan with me, and that I was going to be part of their engagement story, having been away with them, but most importantly that Jill was now officially going to be part of my family as well. Now I should explain, me being away with them during that special weekend was not as weird as it sounds. I was also there with our friend Mark Graham, who actually then later proposed to his girlfriend, Amanda, a few weeks later. So yeah, that's awesome for them. I was also there with my girlfriend at the time, now my ex-girlfriend. So clearly my relationship kind of went the opposite direction. But I've never actually considered the sick irony of that. So there's one more quick Chris story that I would like to share. That's related to a drinking game all of the Rosse guys play when we're together. All of us boys have certain qualities or quirks that we can't help but do. And the rule is when you see this person doing said quirk, they need to take a drink. Chris's quirk is needlessly poking or stoking the bonfire or needlessly fiddling with something in an attempt to make it slightly better. The reason why this is significant is Chris cannot help himself in constantly seeking perfection. Knowing this, I think it's very appropriate that Chris has found Jill, because in her, I do believe he has finally found that perfection that he's always been seeking. Now, they say birds of a feather flock together, but they also say opposites attract. So which is it? In my opinion, as it relates to Chris and Jill, it's equal parts of both, and I'm in a fairly unique position to answer this. I lived with Chris and Jill for 4 months shortly after they bought their house, and in so doing, I was able to make some interesting objective observations. First and foremost, Jill is a saint. Any girl who is willing to buy a house with her boyfriend only to have his best friend subsequently move into the basement obviously has a great deal of patience. And this patience will serve her well into the future in dealing with Chris, who, despite all of my previous touchy-feely comments, he can require some from time to time, believe it or not. The second and equally important thing I observed was the undeniable, effortless ease that they have with each other. They complement each other very well with their differences and diverse interests, while maintaining a very similar moral compass, which acts as the foundation of their relationship. And while they are different in a lot of ways, they both make changes and sacrifices for the other. For example, Jill hates speedboats and going really fast, but she reluctantly agreed to come out with me and Chris during that fateful cottage weekend. Chris, too, has made some significant changes for Jill as well. He hasn't picked any bar fights in at least 4 years. Now,
I can sort of attest to that.
okay, so with all that being said, I would now like to invite everybody to raise their glass. To Chris and Jill, my brother and now my new sister, today you write the first page of the next chapter of your lives, and may this be the best chapter yet. Cheers.
Cheers, George.